But when you have that many quarterbacks and it's on you to make the right decision, all the decisions has not been conducive to what we need to do. 13 different quarterbacks. I don't care what the name on the back of their jersey says. That has to be said to something. When you have guys in this league.
Did you want to? Well, he's developed young players, maybe not young quarterback. Which young quarterback did you want him to develop?
The ones that's on your roster. The ones that you went out and drafted. The ones that you have to go out and win with or put your team in the position to win. We're talking Dylan Gabriel. We're talking Shedeur Sanders. Those are obvious names.
Dan Orlovsky finds himself at the center of a massive controversy and facing intense criticism from former NFL MVP Cam Newton after he publicly defended Kevin Stefanski's coaching decisions with the Cleveland Browns. The heated exchange has ignited a firestorm across the sports media landscape, with Orlovsky attempting to make the case that Stefanski is a great coach who will land another head coaching position soon. However, Cam Newton was having absolutely none of it, and what followed was one of the most passionate and unfiltered takedowns we've seen in recent sports media history.
We're talking Shedeur Sanders. Those are obvious names. When you hire a guy like Kevin Stefanski, first and foremost, he's an offensive mind.
Yep.
The offense for the Cleveland Browns were in the bottom half of the wrong position or in the wrong statistic. Yep.
Cam Newton did not hold back even for a second when responding to Orlovsky's defense of the former Browns head coach. Newton came out swinging with facts and figures that paint a damning picture of Stefanski's tenure in Cleveland. According to Newton, Stefanski cycled through an astounding 13 different quarterbacks during his time with the Browns. And despite having that many opportunities to find and develop a franchise signal caller, he failed to produce anything remotely resembling sustained success. Newton pointed out that the only real highlight of Stefanski's coaching career was reaching the playoffs in 2019. And even that accomplishment has been called into question given the talent that was available on that roster. The crux of Newton's argument centers around accountability and the fundamental responsibilities of an NFL head coach. While Orlovsky tried to shift blame onto the quarterbacks themselves, suggesting that the revolving door at the position was primarily due to poor quarterback play, Newton wasn't buying that explanation for even a moment. He fired back by emphasizing that it is precisely the head coach's job to develop quarterbacks, to put them in positions to succeed, and to build a system that can elevate their play. Stefanski had 13 chances to do exactly that, and by Newton's assessment, he failed spectacularly every single time. Newton declared emphatically that Stefanski's firing was not only justified, but long overdue. When a coach goes through that many quarterbacks without developing a single one into a consistent performer, the problem isn't with the players anymore. The problem is clearly with the coaching, the system, and the inability to properly evaluate and nurture talent at the most important position in all of sports. This isn't about one or two quarterbacks not working out. This is about a systematic failure over multiple seasons with multiple different players, and that falls squarely on the shoulders of the head coach. What makes Cam Newton's criticism even more compelling and justified is when you examine the specific case of how Stefanski handled Shedeur Sanders this season. This situation perfectly encapsulates everything that was wrong with Stefanski's approach to quarterback development and game management. Shedeur Sanders, one of the most talented young quarterbacks to enter the league in recent years, was brought into the Browns organization with high expectations. However, Stefanski made the baffling decision not to give Sanders any first-team reps during training camp. Think about that for a moment. You have a talented young quarterback who needs to learn your system, build chemistry with the receivers, and get comfortable with the speed of the NFL game, and you don't give him meaningful practice time with the starting unit.
And then suddenly you throw him into the start lineup, and he hasn't had any reps with the first team at all. Think about that. So you're just going to throw him to the wolves like that, huh?
So you just gonna throw him to the wolves like that, huh? Then, in what can only be described as a recipe for disaster, Stefanski threw Sanders into game situations without proper preparation. He put the young quarterback in the mix, essentially asking him to succeed without giving him the tools and practice time necessary to do so. Despite this terrible setup, Shedeur Sanders showed incredible resilience and talent, trying to make the absolute most out of every opportunity he was given. The kid fought hard, studied the playbook, and did everything in his power to succeed, despite being put in an impossible situation. But even when Sanders started showing real promise and proving he could compete at the highest level, Stefanski somehow found ways to sabotage his success. The game against the Tennessee Titans stands out as perhaps the most egregious example of Stefanski's mismanagement. In that game, Shedeur Sanders put on an absolutely spectacular performance, bringing the Browns roaring back into a game that looked like it was slipping away. Sanders threw 4 touchdown passes, displaying poise in the pocket, accuracy on his throws, and the kind of leadership that had Browns fans jumping out of their seats. He had orchestrated one of the most impressive comeback performances of the entire season, and the Browns were in position to win the game. Everything was set up perfectly. The momentum was entirely on Cleveland's side. Sanders had the hot hand, and all signs pointed to letting the young quarterback finish what he started. But then, Kevin Stefanski made a decision that left everyone scratching their heads in disbelief. With the game on the line, and the Browns needing to sustain one final drive to seal the victory, Stefanski inexplicably pulled Shedeur Sanders from the game. Instead of riding with the quarterback who had just thrown 4 touchdowns and brought the team back from the brink of defeat, Stefanski handed the ball to Isaiah Judkins and changed the entire offensive approach. The results were catastrophic. Judkins completely ruined the final drive of the game, failing to execute when it mattered most, and the Browns ended up losing a game they absolutely should have won. The loss wasn't on Shedeur Sanders, it wasn't on the defense. It was purely a coaching decision that backfired spectacularly, and it cost the Browns a crucial victory. This pattern of poor decision-making extended far beyond just how Stefanski handled quarterbacks on the field. There's mounting evidence that Stefanski created a toxic environment where players who spoke up or questioned his decisions faced retaliation. Multiple reports have emerged suggesting that Stefanski would take players out of games or off the active roster by declaring them injured, even when they were perfectly healthy and ready to play. This kind of behavior is not only unprofessional, but borderline unethical, as it involves lying to both the players and the media about legitimate injury situations. Even more damning is the revelation that Stefanski allegedly faked injury reports for Shedeur Sanders not once, but twice during the season. Both times, Sanders was listed as injured and unable to play, but people close to the situation have suggested that these injury designations were not legitimate. Instead, they were convenient excuses for Stefanski to avoid playing Sanders, perhaps because he didn't fit into whatever offensive scheme Stefanski had convinced himself would work, or perhaps because playing Sanders would have been an admission that his earlier decisions not to prepare him properly were mistakes. Whatever the reason, using fake injury reports to manipulate playing time is completely unacceptable and represents a serious breach of trust between coach and player.
I think warming up, and I felt it throughout individuals who took a look at it. If it's a right guard, you can play through that. When it's a quarterback, you kind of need that muscle to throw. So unfortunately, going to put him down for a little bit here. We'll treat it day to day and see how he responds, but want to be smart because he's a thrower, so you can't push him.
When you look at all of this evidence together, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore, and Cam Newton's passionate criticism of both Stefanski and Dan Orlovsky's defense of him becomes completely justified. Stefanski wasn't just a coach who had bad luck with quarterbacks, or who happened to be in a tough situation. He was a coach who consistently made poor decisions about quarterback development, who mismanaged game situations when his quarterbacks actually performed well, and who allegedly used dishonest tactics to control his roster and suppress dissent. That's not the profile of a great coach who deserves another opportunity. That's the profile of someone who failed at the most fundamental aspects of the job. The validation for Newton's position came from an unexpected but significant source when Stephen A. Smith weighed in on the controversy. Smith, one of the most prominent voices in all of sports media, affirmed that the decision to fire Stefanski was absolutely the right move. Smith emphasized that over 6 years, Stefanski had 13 different quarterbacks come through his system, and he couldn't develop a single one of them into a capable franchise quarterback. That's not a small sample size. That's not bad luck. That's a systematic failure that speaks to fundamental deficiencies in coaching ability, particularly in the area that matters most in modern football. Stephen Smith made the compelling argument that when you have that many opportunities to get the quarterback position right, and you fail every single time, you've proven beyond any reasonable doubt that you're not the right person for the job. The NFL is a quarterback-driven league, and a head coach who cannot evaluate, develop, or properly utilize quarterback talent is simply not going to succeed at the highest level. Stefanski had more chances than most coaches ever get, and he squandered every single one of them. The contrast between Dan Orlovsky's defense of Stefanski and the passionate criticism from Cam Newton perfectly captures the broader debate about accountability in coaching. Orlovsky seems to be making the case that coaches should be evaluated primarily on scheme and game management, and that player development failures can largely be excused if the players themselves don't pan out. But Newton is arguing from the perspective of someone who actually played the game at the highest level, and his position is that coaches must be held accountable for development, for creating environments where players can succeed, for making smart decisions that give their teams the best chance to win. When you have a situation where a coach not only fails to develop quarterbacks, but actively sabotages them through lack of preparation, questionable in-game decisions, and allegedly dishonest injury reporting, the case for that coach being fired becomes overwhelming. Cam Newton is absolutely right that Kevin Stefanski was not a deserving coach, and Dan Orlovsky's attempts to defend him only highlight how out of touch some media members can be with the realities of what actually happens inside NFL organizations. The Kevin Stefanski era in Cleveland is over, and based on the evidence, it ended exactly when and how it should have. 13 quarterbacks and no sustained success tells you everything you need to know.